Hello and welcome back to Hello Media. Today we are meeting Marg, a member of CC FR for refugees. We'll be discussing the local actions and how we can possibly help them in their plight.
What is your job?
Well, I'm one of a team of women who are working with CC FR for refugees, and we do lots of different things. It's not really a job, we're not paid, we're volunteers, but we write letters, we speak to people, we raise money and advocate for refugees and for better refugee policies.
How did you know that you wanted to advocate for refugees?
Well, when I heard about some of the Australian government policies towards refugees more than 20 years ago, making some pretty cruel decisions around refugee treatment, I thought it was really unfair, locking people up on islands for many years, not letting them come and seek safety in Australia, which under the United Nations humanitarian rules they are allowed to. And I knew that was wrong, and I wanted to do something about seeing that change.
How many years has CC FR for refugees been operating?
We've been operating for over 7 years now.
How many people in your group?
We have 8 members in our group. We are nearly all women in our 80s, 70s. Oh, what did I say? We're so much younger. In our 70s. So we also have a mailing list with maybe 30 other members, so we can ask them when we're looking especially for some funds. We might put an email out to them and then they might respond by making a donation.
What continues to inspire you to do this job?
Well, I'm inspired by the stories of the refugees who we're helping and how brave and courageous and resilient they've been for so many years, trying to find safety and be treated with proper respect in Australia. And I'm also inspired by other people in my group who are just constantly working towards better outcomes for refugees, and other groups. There are so many other active groups as well. They also inspire me.
How is your service funded?
Well, we're not funded by the government at all. We're only funded by good people who live in Australia, many of them who live in Pakenham and Casey and Officer in that area. So people who are supportive of what we're doing, they help us raise funds to pass on to refugees.
Has your past experience helped shape you in your role?
Well, it has, because back in 1970s I was teaching English to newly arrived migrants, refugees from the Indo-Chinese wars, and Australia had a really different policy then. They flew people who'd come on boats to Australia, or flew them from refugee camps in Indonesia, flew them to Australia, and then they housed them in hostels which were run by the federal government, and they weren't prisons. People could come and go from the community freely. These days, refugees who come here without the permanent visa are locked up as if they're in prisons. Working with refugees then, and then seeing how the policies changed around more than 20 years ago, that really shaped me in feeling this is completely unfair. We've got to do something to get these policies changed. We can't treat people like that.
Did you operate through COVID?
Well, during COVID, we were able to organise our meetings on Zoom, and that actually was very advantageous because we zoomed in with other refugee activist groups all around Australia. So we actually learned that there were many, many other groups doing similar stuff to us, and that was an advantage for us to learn that through COVID. We had restrictions on, of course, raising funds through having a cinema, selling, a movie night. We couldn't do things like that. We were restricted. We couldn't go to rallies, which we do quite a lot. So there were some negatives. We could still write letters to the local paper like we do, and we could still have Zoom meetings. So it wasn't too bad.
How you cope? Story.
I guess have to just keep on going, because stressful stories just make you more inspired to keep acting. You think, this is just not right what I'm hearing, so I must keep doing the things that we're doing. And sometimes also we take a break out. We might go for a holiday and just switch off for 2 weeks. We're lucky we can do that. The refugees can't do that.
How do you decide who to help?
Well, we decide that sometimes on the basis of what's going on politically for different groups. So, for example, we know at the moment there is a group on Papua New Guinea of refugees, more than 57 men, and the government cut all the funding to them more than a year ago. So to us, that was a time that we had to step in, because only by individuals who are donating from Australia did those people have food or able to go to a doctor or able to pay for rent. So that was quite a crisis, and it still hasn't been resolved. So we do look at those sort of priority things, and they're the ones at the moment we've been focusing on Papua New Guinea for more than a year, because it's been a shocking situation there. There are other refugee groups. I know of one in Apollo Bay. They, for example, focus on 7 families in Afghanistan, and they have a means of getting money into Afghanistan to these families so that they can survive. So different groups are working in different ways, but at the moment that's what we're doing.
What has your service this year done to support the refugees?
We've raised some money, we've had functions, we have attended rallies in the city, we've written letters to newspapers, local, and we've also written to politicians, and we've raised money through our network of supporters. We've also attended a lot of other meetings with other refugee groups so that we network in with other refugee groups.
How can we help with online presence?
Well, having us part of this amazing program, that's a great help for us. Thank you very much for all the time you're putting into doing this. Things going on through Instagram will be great. We have our own little bookmark, which has our email address, caseycardiniaforrefugees@gmail.com, and a couple of phone numbers, and that tells some of the things that we do. But thank you for giving us that presence.
How can people become involved?
Well, we have this little pamphlet that we hand out when we're at rallies, or if we're at a refugee week, for example, down in Pakenham as we were in June. And through Instagram, we have got an email address which is caseycardiniaforrefugees@gmail.com. So we love to hear from people.
We hope you enjoyed our interview with Marg, an interesting cause. Join us next time for more insights and chat with our local guests.